Hey there, how you doing?
Doing all right. How are you?
I'm excellent. Welcome everybody. This is going to be episode 19 of Three Pagans on Tap. And we've got a lot of announcements for this particular show because
Indeed.
unfortunately one of our co-hosts, we are actually down to technically two pagans on tap for the foreseeable future, unfortunately. Carr has had a lot of stuff come up all at once, and life is kind of kicking him while he's already having to juggle a lot. So he's had to exit the show for the time being. I can't wait to have him back on. I cannot wait for him to join us with the drinking and the enjoyment of his company. Um, but we wish him all the best, and we hope to see him very soon. Hopefully sooner rather than later. This has been a kind of a rough year for Carr.
Yeah. Indeed. So yeah, that said, welcome to two Pagans on Tap, episode 19.
Yep. So what we have going on tonight is we're actually going to talk a little bit about some of the back end work that we have to do yet. So obviously, unfortunately, Carr is no longer with us. One of the other things, because both Malik and I's lives are getting much more intense with the frequency of change and everything going on now that everything's opening back up, we are going to be putting the show back to a once a month schedule. It's going to be in the first Tuesday of every month. And that's going to be our schedule from here on out. It's going to be the same time, same place. So if you're used to seeing us on YouTube and Facebook Live, real quick aside, sorry to our Facebook users, we couldn't get the live stream to work for some reason, so we're going to work with StreamYard, and hopefully by episode 20, that'll be fixed.
It should be, yeah.
So, again, like because of how crazy life is getting and everything that's going on with us, we're going to bump it back to a once-a-month schedule, both in terms of being able to pay for the booze and also just being in terms of our sheer scheduling right now is absolutely nuts.
Right. Yeah, it's life gets crazy as the pandemic ends and things open back up, and also we're just very busy regardless. Almost like adults with full-time jobs have, shit going on.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that Malik and I have talked about has been to, for Carr's absence until he comes back, if and when he chooses that option, we were thinking about doing rotating guests. Mm-hmm. And so if you want to be a guest, email myself at sarinth@gmail.com or Malik.
At malik.gmail.com? Or Malik, wow, I forgot my own email address because...
we haven't even started yet.
Right? No kidding. Good job, Lucas. I mean, Malik, wow, I'm having a great night. My brain's on fire. This is awesome. Woo!
So yes, we're also going to talk a little bit about changes to our Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things we'd like to do is put out a survey for our Patreon patrons, asking for feedback for anything they'd like to see from us, and so we can have that close by whenever we get the work together for our next show.
Mm-hmm. And that survey will be open to everyone who supports us on Patreon, so we can basically get feedback from everyone, what y'all want to see, what y'all want more of, want less of, etc.
Absolutely.
Two things that we do think are definitely coming is that for pints and above, we're going to introduce topic and drink suggestions so for every month, we'll release it the month ahead and just be like, hey, drop us a line on what you'd like to see us talk about or ideas for what you might like to see us drink, etc. And then for the half pints and above, we'll do a quick Q&A every month. Doesn't have to be anything in depth, but basically, if you got a question for us, let us know, and we'll do what we can to answer it.
Yep. And that goes for any of our pints and above, correct?
Half pints and above, yeah.
Half pints and above, okay.
Yep.
So good. Yeah, that'll be good because our format of the show, we started this off as a review show and kind of a talking around issues of paganism, and now we've kind of flipped the script entirely on its head, which for me works a lot better because I'm not a professional brewer, nor have I been. So Like tonight, I'm drinking Dewar's 12 year,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm also drinking Drambuie. So
Seems apropos.
yeah, I thought so. Um, so yeah, so I also want to talk a little bit about what we're hoping to do with the show moving forward. Um, and one of the things that Malik and I have both been talking about at great length, besides the Q&A, has also been about what we can bring to the table to talk about as
Mm-hmm.
far as subjects ourselves.
Yeah.
That's called a segue.
Yeah, I know. And my brain, of course, because it's that kind of night, my brain just gone.
It's all
I had
good.
it, and it's gone.
So what we're going to be doing is, besides the Q&A and the various topics that you folks bring to us as being our patrons, we're also going to be exploring topics of the night as we kind of see fit. So it's going to be, we saw this thing, this hot take, and we're going to talk about it. Or it's going to be the latest stupid shit on TikTok. Nah, that's not this kind of show. We're not a drama show. What we're going to be doing is we might use some TikTok drama or something as a jumping off point, but our focus here is to have conversation, not just a bitch fest. So anything that we bring to the table, we want it to be a conversation that we're actually intellectually interested in, not just blowing off steam. If you want to watch those kind of shows, there's tons of them. There's tons of them. So what we want to do is we want to address our content from a pagan point of view. And we realize that we're both heathens. So if there is somebody that you want us to have on as a drinking buddy, or several somebodies as like a panel to sit back and have a conversation and a couple of drinks, suggest them to us.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Absolutely. And I know there's a couple of people who've already reached out to me, wanting to be guests. A couple of them are heathens, a couple of them aren't. So that'll be fun to see that all lined up.
Well, before we get too far along, I want to do the prayer for the night.
That would be great.
All right.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Hail to our Desir, hail to our Feta, hail to our Erki, hail to our Favar. Hail to our ancestors, those who hold us close. Hail to our blessed ones, those who have our backs. Hail to the holy ones, you who walk with us. You who farmed, you who fought, you who brought the generations forward. Holy ones, all. Quiet ones, loud ones, gentle ones, fierce ones. Thank you, thank you, thank you, O holy ancestors. Thank you for the blessings of our lives. Thank you for the blessings, these drinks that you pass down to us, generation on generation on generation. Thank you, holy ones, for the bonds of friendship that you've shown us, how to preserve, to maintain, and to grow. Hail, hail, hail to our ancestors. Thank you for being with us tonight. Estuhai.
Cheers to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think those Dewar's is getting croaked tonight.
I mean, there are worse ways to finish a bottle.
Yep. Skull.
Indeed. Wait, is Granny Gamer, who's in our comments, is that?
That's Stormbreaker.
Okay, cool.
Her,
I was
her
like,
on StreamYard is different than what it is everywhere else, just to make shit real confusing.
Right? I was like, this person is talking real familiar for a name I don't recognize. Oh, now it makes sense.
Also, can you highlight that first comment she gave us?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not lackluster.
Right?
I just want to say that. Like,
no kidding.
For those who are unaware, this is Stormbreaker from around Grandfather Fire, and she is about the furthest damn thing from a lackluster replacement.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be very happy to have her on as a guest, and likewise to Finn.
Indeed. The number of people who have said that we need to have Finn on as a replacement. I don't know if the universe can handle that many Odinsons in one place for that long.
It hasn't kicked us out of the chat yet, so.
It hasn't. But, Finn's not on yet. Again.
Yeah. Oh, my.
Indeed. So, you're drinking Dewar's tonight. Have you reviewed that on air before?
Oh, yeah. Dewar's is top shelf for me. Top shelf, I should say, it's what I'm usually going to go get if I want a decent whiskey. If I want a whiskey that I'm used to, I'm going to get the cheap Old Crow.
Yeah.
Which everybody to a person has given me shit for, but I don't care. I don't give a fuck, because if it's drinking whiskey, it was the first whiskey I could afford to get for Othin. I absolutely think a Freya's Lady would be a great mix.
Yeah, so Granny Gamer says, and you think a Freya's Lady would be a good mix? I do, actually.
Yeah. Unequivocally.
Yeah. Yeah. As much... I'm going to shut my mouth before I get in trouble.
No, come on.
Yeah. I'm getting wise in my old age.
If I'm picking a Scotch, I'm probably picking Dewar's Old Crow, Tennessee Honey Whiskey, or something like that. Mm-hmm. It kind of depends on what kind of scratch I've got and what I'm celebrating. If I'm picking it up just for me and it's not a special occasion, I'm probably gonna pick something lower.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably gonna pick up like one of those giant ass jugs of Old Crow because I'm cheap like that. But if it's like celebrating a birth or a death or something, I'm probably gonna spring for Dewar's or the 21-year Scotch. Yeah. Usually blended whiskeys or single malt Scotch, single malt Irish whiskeys, things like that.
Yeah. Brain, you are on fire tonight. So the thing that I started off with is because I'm a sucker and will always get tricked by founders. If my camera will focus and if I can work my camera. Wow, good job. Masagave Classica, the Prickly Pear edition. So when they released the Masagave seltzers, it looks like they changed the Masagave beer to Masagave Classica, like the classic version of Masagave. And this year it looks like they also released a prickly pear along with the lime and grapefruit versions. And so far, I gotta say, it's pretty fucking good.
Excellent.
You can't see it on camera because my lighting's not super great, but the color is almost ruby red.
You've got a phone right there, don't you?
Yes. Let me
post your flashlight on and shine a light through it.
That would be a good idea. This is why you're the smart one.
I have them on occasion.
All right. Wow, that's awful.
Oh, there we go. I'm back.
There we go.
Yes, much better. Oh, look at that bubbles.
Yep.
Just don't shine the flashlight in the camera.
There we go.
Much prettier.
There you go. I take your good ideas and I butcher them, but we'll get there eventually.
All good. All good, Olskin.
Yeah, it's really good. I'm such a sucker for founders. It's so bad, but their beer's so good. Like, I don't know. It's fine.
It's one of the few brewers that I can actually stand to drink because, like most of the popular ones, if it's not Ann Arbor Brewing Company, Founders, I'm spoiled for choice here in Michigan. Like that's kind of the end result of being in a place where craft brewing is a huge thing. You get spoiled for choice, and you're like, I can't drink any of that plebe shit.
Right.
And you sound like an asshole because when you go up and you drink a regular beer, it tastes like piss.
Yeah. No, it just doesn't. It doesn't hit the same. Now there is one beer that is objectively bad that I drink during the summer when it's hot as balls, and is Mick Ultra Cactus Lime.
Why?
Because it's that right hit of sweet and carb and a little touch of sour from the lime, and not heavy enough that like I basically drink them like water, right? Because they're only like 3% ABV, so they're more hydrating than they are dehydrating, and I can just literally drink them like water all day. Um, we're not going to talk about why my tolerance is that high.
Yeah, but why? Why? I mean, damn. There's hating yourself.
I don't know. Like, it's one of those things, like, when it's hot.
My judgment goes out the fucking window.
I mean, kind of. And it's also, like, I don't know. It hits that sweet spot for me. And it's about the only beer that does. Like, I can drink other light beer. It's fine. But I don't know. Like, there's just something about that beer in particular. It's also probably, like, a nostalgia thing because I drank it when I was much younger and, like, didn't know better. I mean, I did know better because I started drinking craft at 21 because I'm super pretentious, you know, embracing that pretentiousness, like Granny Gamer says. And I refuse to call you anything else on this show right now. You're Granny Gamer. That's what we're going to run with. But I don't know. It's just something about that beer in particular that I like. And I only when it's hot, and it can't just be summer. It has to be like 90 degrees plus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like, it's a beer you drink on a boat in the sun. Or like mowing the lawn in the sun. Not like inside on a cool day.
I mean, at 3%, you could damn near give that to a kid.
I mean, pretty close. And if we were in Europe, you actually almost could. Let's see. Finn says, grab a mountain beach from Breckenridge. I will have to because I've never heard of that before.
Never heard of it. It's crazy.
Indeed.
So, okay. So with embracing this pretentiousness thing, what is a modern craft you won't touch and why?
Modern craft I won't touch and why? Are we talking company or style?
Whatever. You know they come here to listen to your rant, right?
I mean, that's fair. I will not touch anything by Rogue Brewing Company.
Okay.
100% will not touch it. And the reason for that is because they treat their workers like dog shit. And they have for a long fucking time. Arguments could be made that their beer isn't very good. And I would make those arguments. But that's not why I won't drink it, because I drink bad beer sometimes. Like, that happens. I will not give money to a company that treats their workers like shit. And Rogue has a long history in the industry. They're literally infamous for, no, they treat their workers like dog shit. They drive them into the dirt, and they pay them like shit, and they basically abuse them. And I won't stand for it, so they don't get my money.
Good reason. Okay. I can't say anything to that effect. With the reputation Rogue Brewing has, I probably won't be buying anything from them anyway. I mean, me personally, like, the only thing I probably won't drink is cheap stuff like Mad Dog 2020 and Boone's Farm, because I've heard so many awful things about both of those that I'm just like, I skipped that part of my life. I'm good.
Yeah, like,
no regrets.
I am no longer 21. I do not want a hangover I can feel in my teeth, and no thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More to the point, I don't think my family wants to deal with me having a hangover I can feel in my teeth.
Yeah.
I live with other people. It's a bad scene. Nothing worse than a whiny-ass, formerly drunk person walking around going, why did I do that to myself? We're all wondering the same thing, smartass.
Yeah, right? Like, I don't know. Why did you do that to yourself? Because I'm an idiot? Are you going to do it again in 2 weeks?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Once a month now.
Yeah, once a month now. But, you know. Interesting. So Finn says,
I did not fucking know that. That's wild.
So in Oklahoma, 3.2 or less can be given to your child in your home. South Carolina has a similar law, and I don't recall the specifics. But I want to say in South Carolina, it's something like 16 and up can drink in the parent's home with the parent present. and I think it has like 5% or less. Maybe I'm not 100% sure.
I don't know about Michigan. As far as I know, it's completely illegal for minors to drink.
Quite possibly. I mean, keep in mind, Oklahoma and South Carolina are the South, where things are a mite bit different. Not that different, but a mite bit different.
Oh,
this is so fucking good. It doesn't have quite the saltiness that I want. And I want it just a little bit more purely because it's based on a margarita, and I want just a little more salt to it. But, you know. Oh, no. Oklahoma, where the drunks come walking home from school. Yeah. I mean, it's fine. Every state pokes fun at every other state, and I think we need to just get over that. Like,
it's not my state's fault that it looks like I have a hand up a deer's ass.
I mean,
yeah.
Granted,
yeah, that's my understanding.
Michigan is zero tolerance across the board, but there are unspoken house rules law. Yeah, I mean, what the police choose to enforce is entirely up to them. And I'm going to not rant on that because
that'll take up the remainder of what time we have.
No kidding. Get us into potentially trouble. It's fine.
Take care, Finn. Thanks for joining us.
Indeed. It was nice having you on, as always. Josie says, blame Canada? I mean, I feel like we're the hand up Canada's ass, but whatever.
Puppets.
Brain? It's fine. Puppet's not where my brain was going, Sarenth, and thanks for the visual.
Hey, look, it has a flare tip. It's all good. Happy Pride!
Happy Pride! Happy Pride indeed.
Hey, and if anybody, for some fucking reason, has come across this channel randomly and doesn't like LGBTQIA, BIPOC, fuck off!
Right? Just entirely. It was, I gotta say, watching you kick that fucking Nazi bootlicker off the AGF server was just, it was beautiful. It was a thing to behold. I was so... It genuinely made my next 2 days. It was grand.
Some backdrop for folks who don't know. We got our first racist asshole trying to carry water for Nazi bullshit on the Around Grandfather Fire server. And once I figured that out, I kicked them off the server with extreme prejudice. Telling them something to the effect of, if you don't like SJW bullshit, get the fuck off my Discord. And that's pretty much how I feel about this YouTube channel as well. If you don't like SJW shit and you don't want that as part of your regular content, get the fuck off my YouTube.
Yeah, really.
That's what we're all about here.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter, Indigenous Lives Matter, BIPOC Lives Matter. And don't hit me with that all lives matter bullshit until and unless all lives actually fucking matter.
Yeah. Yeah, just entirely.
And also, again, Happy Pride. Because
Happy Pride.
Hot damn. And do not forget that we owe this fucking month to our trans brothers, sisters, and those who are either in between. We owe this month to them and Stonewall riots.
And specifically to trans women of color.
Bingo.
Who specifically started the Stonewall riots that this month is in remembrance of.
So, to all of our Ergi ancestors, to all of our Thavur ancestors, that's appropriate. This bottle's dead. Hail to you all.
Hail to you.
Let's do Heil.
I'm going to feel that later.
Yeah, you will.
Because that was a 9.7% beer that I just slammed. It's fine.
Yeah, it's all right. Your brain wasn't working too well anyway. This is kind of like a kickstart.
Right. This is it's gonna be wonderful. Also, that's not the kind of beer that's designed to be slammed. My body instantly regrets that, but there we go.
Get some water. Get some headache medicine.
Oh, it's not that. It's more of the bubbles and stuff are like.
Ooh, can you highlight that, please?
Indeed. Granny Gamer says, "Hail and Skull, thank you for paving the way and guiding us through all the hate and pain." Indeed. You know, I'm very okay with this turning into a Pride episode. Like, no, that's 100%.
It's the month, and this is the only broadcast we're doing this month. So yeah, it makes total sense.
Yeah, indeed.
I mean, being a Josie, you're awesome.
I specifically gave you the water glass that says "Stupefy." I got you covered, love, and indeed she does, and
indeed you are.
Indeed she did, and I am indeed covered.
Drinking your fucking water.
Yes.
So nah, fuck it. This is turning into a Pride episode. So if you have problems with queer gods, you probably shouldn't be a heathen. Like, let's just state that up front.
Right.
Because, you know, was the word queer used back when the ye old lore was written? No. But then again, there's a lot of shit that doesn't translate into modern day heathen.
Right, and
like we don't have thralls anymore, which I don't want to ever have instituted ever again. Thanks.
Right, no shit. Turns out slave systems are bad. Also, like, sexuality was so different back then. It wasn't about. It really wasn't about the gender of your partner. I mean, it was kind of.
It was about who was getting it. Who was getting?
Yeah, it was about who was getting penetrated. Right, like it was about penetration.
Yeah,
you actually find a similar thing
to the passive partner.
Yeah, you actually find a similar thing in Greece. And I know this because I saw it on TikTok. No, you're good. If you want to change it. Sorry, Shan came down. But yeah, you actually see a similar thing in Greece where sexuality was more about, and like they put a lot of morals on it because people always put morals on sexuality. But it was more about. I'm sorry about how dark it got. It's fine.
So you need that light.
I think it's okay, honestly. Sorry, I'm just being loud. Anyway, the morality of. Not the morality. The hierarchy of sexuality was basically based on who was the penetrative partner. So, like, adult men in ancient Greece and in particular Athens were always expected to be the penetrators. And then, like, adult women, when they were good women, were at the bottom because they were always being penetrated. Yep. And it was a whole fucking thing that was kind of gross, but, like, isn't really comparable to modern day ideas about sexuality, is my point.
Yep. Which is a good point. And anybody that thinks that there are no queer people besides Othin and Loki in the lore, as it were, should really think about one of the, for instance, the legend of Tyrfing, or Hörvarar's saga. In Hervor, it's interesting because she enters the story as a woman and leaves as a man. And I don't think that's very well remarked upon from most heathens. Thanks, Shan.
Yeah. Here, let me throw Shan's up. So we've got Shan saying, "Happy Pride, you bastard Odinsons," heart, in all caps. And also, Yas, Daddy, Yas. Also, Shan is literally 10 feet from me. That's who I was talking to.
That's awesome.
So, you know.
So yeah, if anybody ever says there's no queer people in ancient heathenry, is completely full of shit because they're ignoring entire blocks of stories. Like, put the gods aside, there are people who enter the story as one gender and leave another. So fuck them.
Yep.
So,
And there's the we have recorded priests of Freyr who were said to be dressed as women and effectively
unmanly bells.
Yeah, like they behaved effeminately for the time.
Literally dressed in skirts.
Yeah, like
yeah. So fuck that noise.
Right.
Even gods say queer pride. Fuck off.
No kidding. It's the Bifrost. Bifrost is a fucking rainbow.
Can you pop up Melkor's real quick?
Yeah. So Melkor says, we no longer have the gotta keep the human race from ending issue. Now that we don't need those structures for survival, we can throw them away.
There's something to be said. Okay, as a cis guy, queer sort of, just, I don't know. I go back and forth. This is what the fuck I am.
It's fine. You'll figure it out. Or you won't. And both are fine.
I think the binary serves a purpose because at the very least it provides you an access on where to find yourself.
Yeah.
And if nothing else, that's what an axis is there for, is to figure out where you are in place and time. Am I on the X or Y of this scale? Am I Z? Okay. You know, I think that the problem comes when everything is wrapped up in these definitive identities.
Mm-hmm.
I can say that as a former Catholic. You know, be fruitful and multiply being the primary point of procreation and highlight that, please.
Yep.
Yep.
Shan says, also, I'm drinking Kraken for my ancestors and for Stonewall and the trans woman of color who represented the culture.
Skull.
Oh
my God.
Right.
I forgot how smooth Rambui is.
Yeah, no, it's mildly dangerous, and by mildly I mean very, because it kicks literally like whiskey. I want to say it's 40%.
It's aged Scotch whiskey, heather, honey, herbs, and spices. It fucking tastes like it.
Yep. And
unfortunately, my light is too powerful for this. So, long story short, aged Scotch whiskey, heather, honey, herbs, and spices, and it has 40% ABV. So I'm going to go on this a little lighter than that.
Mm-hmm. Elf Skinner says, effeminate men dancing around the fertile god of big dick energy. Nah, nothing to see here, right? Like, no, that totally wasn't. People drive me nuts. And Shan, I might try that. I might actually try that. You should, because Rambui is actually really good.
It's fucking amazing. If I hadn't already cracked it.
I think I've got a bottle either here or can be here tomorrow. So Shan can have some.
Nice. I want to pick back up on that big dick energy bit there. Because we also see fertility rites which involve an entire household with the Volsi rite. Which Ocean Keltoy just did a recent video on, which was actually really fucking funny and really good.
Good.
But yeah, the Volsi rite is one of those things where, yes, it's a parody. It's a Christian parody of a practice that might have actually existed. Now, can we verify whether or not we have petrified fetuses just kind of lying around? No, because they don't survive that long.
Yeah.
But if it was worthy enough to be wrote down and ridiculed, it probably happened, because that's how a lot of shit survived. We actually have entire diatribes against certain philosophers from ancient Greece that survive, specifically because the Pope or the philosopher in question is bitching about this particular philosopher's point of view.
Right. That's actually a huge part of how folklore survived in the Christianization of various Germanic areas. You see this a lot in a lot of folklore, but I'm particularly thinking about Loch Couteau's Phantom Army of the Night. Lickitung, yes, I know. But Lakuto talks about in Phantom Armies of the Night, which is his book on the Wild Hunt.
Which I still need to read. I haven't read it yet.
You should. I haven't finished it, but it's amazing. I mean, all of his stuff is honestly really good. And if anyone
Sidebar, for anybody that's listening to this and doesn't know who the fuck we're talking about, Lakuto is a folklorist. He is still alive. I mistakenly thought he was dead. He's still alive. He's in his 80s. And he's been writing since he was probably in his 20s or 30s. And this mad lad has published like 10 or 12 books already on various folklore, from the dwarves, land spirits, damn near anything to do with French, German, or Norse. This dude's written about. Like, just check out his library.
Yeah, basically, if it's continental, Celtic, or Germanic folklore, he's written something about it, and it's all really, really good stuff. I don't know if he is actually heathen or polytheist, but his stuff is traded so heavily in recon circles that
he may as well be.
Like, he may as well be, right? Like, I know several people who are like, when he passes, he is going on my ancestor altar because he has been that influential to my practice.
Yeah, pop that up.
Yep. Claude Licketon, because no one can pronounce Lakuto because it's French, and I understand. I'm just super pretentious, so I can pronounce French things half the time.
But only half.
Only half. But yeah, back to my original thing. One of the bits of folklore we have about the Germanic Wild Hunt, and I'm separating that because Celtic, continental Celtic versus Germanic Wild Hunt, there's some interesting differences. And then that gets even wilder when you get to insular Celtic Wild Hunt, which is a whole other thing. But for Germanic Wild Hunts, in one town in Germany in particular, we've got a record from the Catholic priesthood basically saying how all of the women in this town every single night would go out and ride with the Wild Hunt. And they were all witches, and it was bad, and it was evil, and it was like, yeah, this is actually really informative for what the Wild Hunt meant for these people. And you see, like, you can really see a lot of interesting, important things for what these practices, what these ideas, what these myths were for the people at the time, not just as stories, but as living, breathing parts of the culture.
I think that's something that's really missing from a lot of folks when they read these stories. Like, when you're reading the ancient lore that we still have around, you've got to understand this stuff was being recited to people. This wasn't like some professor bent over a tome like it is nowadays. This was like Shakespeare. They got the dick jokes. Like, why is Shakespeare so classically bawdy? He wasn't making pretentious art. He was making groundling humor for the most part. He was making stuff that everybody from the low class to the high class could appreciate. Well, the Norse and Icelandic sources that we still have, I'm primarily Norse and Icelandic heathen, so that's what I know.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the sources we still have are made for the masses who would have known these stories.
Right.
You're not telling these stories to tell the new story. You're telling these because people want to hear the old stories they like.
Right. Like, people... So back when I was an English major, I read this unbearably pretentious treatise on mythology that said that all mythology is necessarily serious. It borders the realms between life and death, and therefore is necessarily serious and just... And I was just like,
who the fuck was waxing their own pole to this shit?
Exactly. I'm just like, dude, we've got Thor dressing up as a woman, and like,
Loki ties his balls to a goat to make somebody laugh.
Right? Like, Loki ties his balls to a goat. Thor dresses up as a woman, which isn't necessarily funny, but in context is funny because he's clearly playing a thing that Thor, right, the big manliest
Thor
man,
is standing in for Freya. That's fucking funny. I don't
right?
care who
It's
you are.
fucking funny. It's meant to be funny. It's meant to be humorous.
And I mean, like with Thor, him and his father, he doesn't realize it's his dad, but him and his father get into what amounts to a fucking pissing match rap battle over his dad not willing to fucking ferry him across a river because he's being a douche canoe.
Right. Or fucking
he literally drops a line in there about how many giants he's slept with. Like, come on.
Yeah. Or fucking the Locusena, the flighting of Loki. Like, I mean,
literally roasting everybody. It's probably the first mythological roast we see.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's
and
it's
what's funnier is none of the gods say that he's wrong.
Exactly. Like
he might be a total douche canoe, but Loki ain't lying.
Right.
It's only in the modern times, thanks to Gaiman, that he actually has the moniker Liesmith. To wit, I remember he does not have that moniker historically speaking.
Really?
I could be mistaken, and I'm also starting to get like really feeling this drink.
I mean, that happens.
But like,
that's really interesting because one of the kennings that I use for him and that he's had me use for him, or two kennings, are liar and blasphemer.
I wouldn't. Okay. I think with Loki, I think he occupies this really liminal space where he's telling enough truth that people can't deny what he's saying is true.
Mm-hmm.
But he's putting enough of. It depends on what you mean by lie. What does the word "is" means?
Right.
Right. So, like, I mean, did Freya really fuck her brother? Probably. It probably wasn't that taboo with the Vanir society. We don't know. But, you know, he did say, like, right before then, you know, Freya, you pretty much fucked everybody in this room. Everybody's looking at each other like, yeah.
Yeah, probably.
That's stupid.
Yeah. And, like, so, for one thing, applying our modern sexual mores to the past is completely...
And sensibilities. Jesus Christ.
And sensibilities. Like, it doesn't work.
No.
Like, you look at Kemetic myth, for example, where you have huge and constant examples of brother marrying sister, and on and on and on.
Well, like the fight between Horus and Set, for instance.
Yeah. And that makes people very uncomfortable. And I'm like, that wasn't uncommon. Pharaohs married their
sisters all the fucking time.
Yeah. It was a thing that happened. And they're like, oh, the genetic mutations and shit. I'm like,
they didn't care. They wanted to keep it in the fucking family. Also, sister and how that was reckoned differs.
Yes. So how family was reckoned differs. Also, people, yes, inbreeding increases chance of negative genetic traits being passed on, but
absolutely,
it's not as dire as people make it out to be. And this is not in any fashion me encouraging inbreeding. Don't you say that I said that, because that's not what I'm saying. It goes against our social mores right now. Don't do it.
You heard it here, folks. I'm sorry.
No. That's not what I said.
No.
But like, strictly genetically speaking, it takes a few generations before that becomes a significant issue.
I mean, right? There's a reason why hemophilia took a long time to show up in the royal fucking family of Russia.
Yeah.
Because they had to inbreed quite a lot. Because they weren't just taking each other's sisters at that point. I mean, they're talking about cousins. And some of these cousins are pretty genetically close.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I mean, and it's... When you get into genetics, it's really complicated because genetics is a whole goddamn mess of complicated.
But long story short, putting our sexual and our modern mores on historically practiced things is problematic, because if we do that, we can lose a lot of the nuance in what they're actually saying in the text, as opposed to what we're reading into it.
Which is not to say that we shouldn't Like, look at
Absolutely not.
Yeah, right. Like, thraldom is bad.
Right.
No, like, it's bad.
Yeah.
Slaves are not a positive thing. I don't care. It's bad. We shouldn't do that. We are better than that now. Well, we try to be better than that now. And that's just all there is to it.
But I mean, what the kind of reaching back further to our original point, the point that we're trying to make about modern mores of sex and sexuality versus historical mores in regards to like ergi and things like that, things have changed a lot, and we don't have a lot of translations that work very well. Queer is probably the best thing we have for our gods in regards to Othin and Loki, because they would not have had those words back then. It would have been, well, Othin's just ergi because he lived as a woman for X number of years. And it would have been true for the time. And it still is true, regardless of how much time has passed. For that, period in history, Othin would have been understood as ergi. And so a lot of your rulers had to walk this kind of fine line between how much do I emulate this god?
Right. And that also brings up a good point of queer people all over the world holding positions of both power and fear.
Yes.
And riding this fine line, often, not always, but often riding this fine line of you are both powerful and useful and also dangerous and an outcast. And it's really interesting. And it's fucked up in a lot of ways, but it's really interesting and useful and powerful in other ways.
I mean, it's not a mistake in our modern era that we have so many queer-coded villains.
Right.
Because if you look at the history of the I can't remember what the particular act is, but it created the Comics Code Authority.
Mm-hmm.
The Comics Code Authority basically said that queer-coded villains were okay, but queer good people were not, because they wanted to basically the Comics Code Authority, which I think was authored back in the 40s and 50s or some shit like that, basically was the gold standard at the time that Congress kind of imposed and said, this is what we're going to put out as far as media content for our kids. And basically made it so that in order to be within the letter of the law, you had to portray basically queer people in a negative way. Because you couldn't portray them in a positive one. So a lot of villains got queer-coded. A lot of them dressed like really fucking spectacularly. Look at Skeletor and his name and how he talks around and prances. And it's a classic example of the mindset that comes out of that era. Also, Ursula from The Little Mermaid from the Disney's 1980s cartoon is an excellent example of what the knock-on effect of this had. Because I think it was Lady Divine, who was literally a drag show queen. There was a drag show queen, and I believe it was Lady Divine, who was the basis for Ursula. And like, unfortunately, like our because of our very Christian society, we have a lot of these queer codings that turn the villain into this great big flaming gay mess of a character, because that's the only place where you could put your queer characters and have them be, acceptable. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
We're very lucky in that, like, for instance, the modern She-Ra reboot actually has good queer representation.
We are. It is slightly more complicated than just like queer characters being put in but being forced into like villain roles, because like also a lot of queer coding is stuff that runs within the queer community.
That's true.
That doesn't like, so say that I'm a straight cishet man and I'm just out living my life and I'm just observing things, and as all authors do, I'm picking up things from my environment. I'm like, oh cool, that'd be a really interesting character. As I see somebody on the street doing a thing, and I don't realize that all of the behaviors I'm seeing from that person that I'm about to put into this villain character are queer coding.
That's true.
Right? And I might not like that person and therefore make them a villain.
Mm-hmm.
And I might not know why I don't like that person, but I make them a villain and I give them all of these same characteristics, not realizing that that's queer coding. And maybe I do realize it and I'm an asshole. Or maybe I don't realize it because I just don't know anything about queer coding or the queer community because it's ostracized.
I mean, it's worth pointing out that, like, Michael J. Straczynski did the writing on a bunch of the fucking He-Man shows that actually, like, made a long-term impact on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, when people are like, wow, this shit really pops up a lot in their writing, well, yeah, you got to understand the milieu that a lot of these guys came out of, because they were learning from people who were under the CCA, the Comics Code Authority. And so, of course, their villains are going to look and act a certain way. And it's not anything to do with any, like, bias they're carrying intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
It's horrible still, but it's unconscious bias that they picked up from the people that they're mentoring from, or that
Mm-hmm.
whose art they're imitating, because that's what they're doing to show that this is a villain. I mean, and I'm not at all apologizing for it any more than I'm saying that the Christians were correct for saying the unmanly clattering of bells, it is an affront to our great Lord and Savior. But just to kind of say, like, historically speaking, if you don't have this background info, you're kind of playing with half a deck, and you're trying to play war. And you're going to keep losing because you don't know all the cards.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, speaking as a guy who kind of goes between what I identify as, and I'm actually a little more further along than I meant to be right now, so I'm a little more open. It's funny how, as a queer guy, I do and don't feel welcome at Pride. And I'm not sure if it's the corporatization on the one hand, or if it's the overwhelming, like, if you're not in the binary, you can kind of go fuck off in the corner with the rest of the weird queer people that aren't as marketable.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not as marketable. And I'm in this really funny position where, like, I feel pride at being able to lift a whole fuckload of weight, and also, like, take pride in myself as a poet. So I'm like this weird, I don't quite fit into any of the fucking gender binaries.
Mm-hmm.
And I still, I mean, I'm pansexual, so, like, I feel attraction to folks regardless of sexuality or sex and sexuality. And so, like, it's this very weird thing to be kind of in between, and yet still be in between, right?
Yeah.
To where I'm drunk enough to recognize that on air I am publicly admitting that I am not 100% cis, but I'm not sure what that means yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I, as a person who is straight passing, because of the fact that I am married and have kids, something that Dan Savage, and I know he's a dick, I get it. Dan Savage said to me a long time ago, so take this with a grain of salt, I was in college, that people who are straight passing have twice as much work to do because I have to actually emphasize as opposed to hide what I am. And I kind of find that really, I don't know. I go back and forth on how appropriate or inappropriate that was to say to somebody who was uncertain, right? I guess, like, the long and the short of it, like, is if I have to clatter my bells to prove to you that I'm queer enough, fuck right off. But if I'm doing it for my God, that's a different story. Like, our gods, I firmly believe our gods accept people for who they are and who they are in and of themselves. Man, I am feeling this really hard. I think I drank a little too much Chambly. But I think that our gods very firmly accept us for who we are and what we are as we come to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that if some asshole says to you, The gods will never accept you because you're queer. That person can go fuck right off. Our gods are multivaried and powerful enough to accept who and what we are in and of ourselves.
Yeah, Melody's got some great stuff. I'm going to toss it up on the screen real quick.
Yes, please do.
Before I do, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Regardless of intoxication, thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for sharing. One, you are queer enough. Two, fuck anyone who says otherwise. So, tossing elf skinners up on the screen. So, a lot of queer coding in film was intentional.
Yes.
It was a way to make a villain more other and more deviant.
Too fucking bad. It just gave us a really good sense of fucking fashion.
I mean, that too. Great documentary, Disclosure, goes through a lot of trans representation in media.
Can you do me a favor and pop up where we can find that?
Yeah. If you could toss that up, Elf Skinner, I would super appreciate it. If not, I will definitely try and post it after the show. I'm not trying to make you do more work. Please don't feel like you have to.
It's on Netflix. It's a Netflix original.
Perfect. It's on Netflix. Disclosure. I haven't seen it. I will watch it at some point soon. Brain, do the words thing, please.
Well, let me put it this way. I know that enough of our Discord membership has been with me, and thank you, Kai. I mean, I don't look it, but I am queer, and pride can sometimes be really rough on me because of the aforementioned "am I queer enough" issue. Yeah, you know what? I gotta chalk this up to white libertarian homosexuals because I have never felt more uncomfortable with my sexuality than when I'm talking with somebody who is firmly in that category who is telling me I'm not queer enough.
Right.
So, fuck them. I am queer enough. And, yeah.
And what a lot of that boils down to is respectability politics.
That shit can go die in a goddamn fire. You know what? The Stonewall fucking rioters didn't give enough of a shit about fucking respectability politics and not throw bricks at the goddamn cops. I know we weren't originally intending on going into the rant territory, but fuck it. You know what? If we're going to say that we're ancestor worshippers, sometimes ancestor worship is a little uncomfortable for those of us who have it better. And, you know what? I honestly have it a whole lot better than a lot of the queer women of color who fucking paved the way so that I could sit on the sidelines and go, wow, I'm really comfortable with this shit. But you know what? Honestly, I am queer. And I am queer enough. And anybody who is... Yes! Imposter syndrome does parallel with almost any aspect of your life. It's kind of like the white wine of dining.
Little rosé to go with your anxiety.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, the thing about it is you know what? We've got way more than enough queer gods that if you don't feel acceptable or accepted in any one area of your life, there is a god that will more than happily fill that void for you. And also, Othin and Thor do not give a flying fuck how masculine or feminine you identify as. They probably venom.
Right.
And, you know, Thor, especially, I have to say this, however masculine or however feminine you identify, he is still going to lift that hammer to smash your foes.
Right.
He is a wonderful, beautiful god whose intelligence and empathy are very much underappreciated in heathen circles. Sorry, please go ahead, Mel.
No, you're good. I had a whole... Huh?
I know. I'm sorry. I interrupted the thought stream and it went poof.
You're fine. You're fine. I had a whole rant about So I'm non-binary. What exactly my gender is, I hope the gods know, because certainly I don't. Half the time I'm like, what's my gender? Wolf. Some days it's bear. Um, some days it's don't fucking perceive me. I don't know. Regardless.
And I need to point out that as it was told to me, that is also valid. And that not knowing is in and of itself part of LGBTQIA+.
Mm-hmm. And that's important. But what I'm getting at is I am very clearly, and I'm very comfortable with the fact that I present masculine, right? I present as a man. This is good for me in a lot of ways because, right, that keeps me very safe in a lot of situations where I might not otherwise be safe.
Especially with that skin color, yes.
Right. Presenting as a white male, and especially because I'm middle class and educated and etc., I have a lot of privilege that other people don't, and that's
absolutely
great for me and really frustrating in a lot of ways, but that's beside the point. In a lot of ways, I feel unwelcome in a lot of queer spaces, and some of that's on me because I haven't realized that I'm queer for long enough to feel comfortable with my own identity in a lot of ways, and also because a lot of queer spaces are not, welcoming to people who are masculine presenting.
Right. Also, because I feel like it needs to be said, AMAB folks, assigned male at birth, folks who are non-binary, you are valid as fuck. Yes. It doesn't matter whatever you got going as far as anything else. You are fucking valid for who and what you are.
Yes.
Please continue.
You're fine. But one, you said much of what I wanted to say. In fact, better than I could say it.
That's a fucking trick, considering I'm pretty toasty.
But, Kai, we're doing Pride stuff. We are, in fact, doing Pride stuff. That's like most of this fucking show, apparently.
Goddamn right.
And I hope that they're doing Pride stuff upstairs, and that I'll walk upstairs and they'll be just like elbow deep in Pride stuff. It'll be great.
Hey, real quick.
Yeah.
For anybody that is feeling inadequately queer enough, I don't know how I present sometimes because I'm me. But I am queer. I am queer. I am queer. And I have a fucking beard. Okay? I got a goddamn Adam's apple. And it doesn't matter if you've got those features or you don't. If you're masculine, you're masculine. If you're assigned male at birth and you don't feel that way no more, you're valid. From one queer person to another, you're valid. And I hope in your heart of hearts that you feel as loved for who and what you are as I do by our gods. And that you feel the depth of understanding and love from our gods that I do. Because I may not have myself fully figured out, but they understand me, even as I'm still figuring me out. You are queer enough. So be proud of who and what you are. Even if you figure out sometime down the road, you know what? I figured out something different. That is okay. It was a step on your journey. That didn't mean you were lying to yourself. That didn't mean you were wrong. That didn't mean you were full of shit. It just means, you know what? You're a work in progress, like the rest of us are. And you're human. Whatever else you may be, you're human. And you are enough.
You know what? We're gonna end the show right there. Before we log off, Saranth, where can people find you?
You can find me at saranth.wordpress.com. That's where our blog is. You can find me at Around Grandfather Fire. And you can also find me on here at Three Pagans on tap. You can find me at patreon.com/Saranth Odinson, SARENTHODINSSON. And if you want to support my work there, you can. You can also support my work here through the Patreon at Three Pagans on tap.
Indeed. You can find me at Maleck, MALECK.home.blog. Excuse me. You can find me on TikTok at Maleck Odinson. Those are the two main places you can find me. That'll also take you to a lot of Discord servers where I'm fairly active. On most Discord servers, I'm some variation of Maleck, Spookwolf, or Sarah Spook. Because, I run with the theme.
And if you want to find our co-host, or our former co-host, you can find them at Three Pagans and a Cat. You just put that in your search engine, and you're going to find them damn near anywhere you look.
Pretty much.
And Carr, we love you, and we hope you're well.
Indeed. So, keep on the lookout for changes, folks. We will be making those as soon as possible. Hopefully tomorrow, although I'm not going to promise, but hopefully tomorrow. Definitely by this weekend. Melkor says, fair winds and safe travels all to you as well.
All of our queer trans women of color who made this month possible to begin with. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hail to you. May you ever be hailed. Stuhal.
Pack warm you and keep you holy ones. Good night, y'all, and we will see you on the after party if you're on the Discord.
Yep, see you on Discord. And if not, we'll see you in the next one, episode 20.
Adios, y'all.